I guess if you were to learn anything today on my channel here, it's if you have the opportunity, if you fit your crankshaft shims, if you have opportunity to adjust them and fit them on the workbench, it's to your advantage to do that. Okay, now at this point, see, I have them two dots right there lined up with that oil hole up there, and the cam gear is on this side over here. If you're looking at the engine, that's the way everything sets up like that. I want to take note of how many shims I have in there, so that when I put the crankshaft in the block, just the bearings, then I can put the piston in, and when I fit it to the crankshaft, it should be adjusted. If not, I can remove this thinnest shim I have, or I have one I can add, very thin. Okay. See, this is a brand new set of bearings, never been in an engine. So you can see where I have them adjusted to the point they're just making a little bit of contact on that edge over there, kind of right in that area. So it's enough shims there that you can remove shims many times down through the years as this babbitt bearing wears. You have that opportunity with a new set of bearings. But with the end right there that's marked with the little dot on it right there on that side, I'm going to put these shims up here. Okay. This one right here went into one with the dot. Down there in the bottom, okay. Yeah, crankshaft looks pretty good across through there. I'm just gonna okay. The shims on the bottom is actually it has 4 shims on the bottom, plus the thick one that locks the bearings together. So, and this is that new old stock bearing. I know how it goes back in there, so and it also was it actually was making contact, but quite minimal. So I got a dowel about the size of that passageway inside that crankshaft on this side. Comes up that way, cross drilled into there. That's what greases your bearings. And to make sure it's clean, make sure you have good grease. And evidently, this one does. You should clean out that passageway till you get grease that's clean. Well, we'll have to get a smaller dowel. That's how much grease is in there. Oh yeah. I'll get all that cleaned up. I'm going to wash that passageway out with a little kerosene. I'll put some new grease in there before we start it up. As if we're looking at it at the present time, on that right there, that being a sleeve liner, I done already shoved that sleeve up in there. This being that distance, and then this distance out here is the block itself. But if you look inside there, you know, that's what it looks like in there in real time. Somebody say, well, this cylinder sleeve, in this situation right here, I choose to only hone it to, I could see a crosshatch in there of the part that you see, if we can see it on this lighting system. But yeah, we got us a new gasket. I noticed on here the part number was it's 5055. And maybe a Starbolt number. I'm not sure about that number, but you know, it goes on here. And when you, I'll show you something. The gasket covers, well, once you get that gasket on there, it covers the complete face of the sleeve and also the complete face of the engine block. Quite thick. A dry head, they refer this engine to. You don't have any water passage going to the head. One of the places on these old engines that I found a use for a gasket sealer is on these heads. And on these heads, I use that former gasket sealer, Permatex, you know, and I use that number 1 on his head gasket. But most of the time, to be honest about it, I'll use that number 1 on the face of the engine, and then it's that hardening type. And then on this side over here, I'll use the number 2 at non-hardening. And that way most instances, you can remove the head at least one time without destroying the gasket. Just saying. Yeah, we'll be good to go there. We got a we got a used nut to go on the end there. Had a new spring on it. Sounds real good with that new valve in there and that seat and guide. Exhaust, that spring's tight. You can't, it's pretty tight. Tension on the spring. I'm going for that there extra point. Something for that blank page in your book there. Get the pencil, write it down. I show you something. It's 3 needle valve mixer. Got that hand wheel missing from the center one. Just to show you about these chambers here, as per a question earlier on, kind of about how do they work or something, you know. Oh yeah, a little more better there. It's a kerosene gasoline mixer. Normally, the way this mixer would work is you would have kerosene in the fuel tank. This would be the kerosene chamber fuel bowl for kerosene. This one little section right here. The way that works is that this inlet line here, your kerosene comes in here, fills this chamber up to the height of this little spillway right here, a little machined out. It's also machined on this side over here. Some of them will be machined and some of them will be as cast. Whatever height that is that makes their spec, I suspect. The drain is in the bottom of that chamber down there. Comes out right down here in the bottom. There's also a spillway between this chamber and this chamber underneath this needle valve passageway. Would be for the water inlet. This would be the gasoline originally. This would be kerosene. This would be water. This chamber back here, you would fill up by the hole in the top of the mixer. You would fill this chamber, all this amount here and this amount here. You'd fill that up until the gasoline ran over this little spillway, and then back to the fuel tank. You would open this, you'd open this needle valve right here and start your engine. You let the engine run until this chamber has used up that amount of gasoline. When that gasoline is used up, the engine should be warm enough, hot enough for the kerosene. You would shut the gasoline off, open up the kerosene valve, and adjust to running condition. If you're running under load, then you can add water to it. Kind of evens out the knock, they say. But that's the way this works. This is only a reservoir. It don't have an inlet to this section. As we're going to run this engine onto gasoline, we'll completely ignore this circuit over here. Just ignore that. And we'll only use this little section out here of this mixer. The fuel will come in the bottom right down here in this brass fitting. It comes up the line, comes in the bottom, it fills up this chamber, and the fuel pump will maintain it at that level. And if it gets higher, it'll overspill this little spillway and return back to the fuel tank. Same way as the kerosene. This would be closed as you was running the gasoline. The fuel pump would be pumping kerosene to fill this chamber up, and it would be full and pumping over the spillway back to the fuel tank. So it would be ready when you run out of gasoline. I'll show you something else. This Venturi, when you put that Venturi into your mixer body, to know if it is the correct height, this amount sticking up, you have to be able to, you put your gasket on there, this amount, ever how thick your gasket is there, this amount that sticks up there has to be the amount that will clear into that. Like when you put that on there, it should be enough clearance in that distance not to, like if you take, I think we'll be all right in this instance, but if I had a much thinner gasket on there, I would have to take a file and relieve the top of that. That fits on there like that, okay? You can see that it pivots onto that center part. So you would have to have a very thick gasket there to make up for that space. So just take a file the top of that off. You'll be good to go. Next item of interest is this top right here. I showed you something. Appears to have a new, yeah, I think that's an internet item with a spring maybe. But as I was looking at this thing and cleaning it up, I noticed that that compensator in there is not, it don't have any tensions on it. The spring ain't long enough. We'll take that apart and see what it is. Well, it's not long enough. I can tell you already. The spring ain't long enough. Yeah, for real. See that face down in there is okay. We'll get all that paint off of these mating surfaces, and then okay. Now, well, this is what's in this engine. Okay. Take note. Okay. The thickness of that casting in there has to be taken in consideration, how thick that is, to where if this would hit up to that seat in there. And well, I'll have to question Morton about that. You actually can see a shiny place right there where this ring, right in that area, this compensating valve, you can actually see a little place right there where it's not been making contact with that seat in there. Yeah, this ain't right. I'll show you. Well, this being a 2-valve, a very early single-piece mixer, but I'll show you something. If you can y'all hear that? That's how much tension that should be required onto a compensating valve spring. And this one had none. That's a spring was in there. This is the new spring that's available now. And you can see that it's a good 1/8 of an inch longer than this one here. It just lost its tension. So we'll put this new one in here. Not to leave you with something. I'm not sure who made this, but this tailpiece should be longer than this. In order to hold it more straighter, the shorter this distance is here, the more wobble you get in it. But oh yeah, I'm gonna put some of that. I'm going to put some of that Permatex around there. I'll show you something. You see it? You hear it? It has that snap. We'll be good to go.